Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not necessarily talking about Dungeons and Dragons 5e, it could be any form of Dungeons and Dragons, whatever, and we're really talking about Dungeon Masters. I'm talking about my Dungeon Master is a Megalomaniac. They have power and control issues and want to take over the world, and certainly seem to want to take over your entire life when you're playing the game of Dungeons and Dragons. And why wouldn't they? Now, the D&D meme here, Cthulhu demands a spell check. I'm going to get back to that at some point. Trust me, we're going to have a discussion of that. I like how Shang Tsung put it, and that is, this is a Mortal Kombat, and once I finally defeat you, I will have your soul. Your soul will be mine. So if you have the unfortunate pleasure of having a megalomaniac at your table, or certainly, let's get real, most megalomaniacs will not be content with just playing Dungeons and Dragons. If they're really a megalomaniac, they're going to really want to take over the world. But certainly they might have some traits and aspects to that kind of concept, and certainly when you're playing the game it can feel a little bit like they are a megalomaniac who has got nothing more interesting to do than to make your life miserable. So Dungeon Masters who are just power hungry freaks, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody so strange and so demented that they would resort to, one, checking your character sheet before every game session to make sure you haven't made any adjustments to it and that it abides by the rules and conditions of the game that they have set out. And if they don't, there's going to be a problem. It's getting torn up and you're rewriting it from scratch. Yes, from scratch. No, twink is not allowed here. Twinking unacceptable. Everything apart from your hit points must be in pen. When you upgrade your character sheet, make sure it's coming in pen. Don't worry about the pencils because they're not interested in the slightest. And on top of that, when it comes to a character sheet, you don't get to keep that character sheet because character sheets are kept safely by the Dungeon Master so that when you forget to bring your character sheet, it is available at the table when needed. And of course that stops you from tampering or making any sort of adjustments. All of these perfectly acceptable and normal sort of practice. I don't know why anybody would be concerned about that. And then of course Dungeons and Dragons does sort of have, like, if you play on a grid, there are like squares on it. So obviously Dungeons and Dragons is played with strict chess rules. Strict. Okay? It's a game and you must play by the rules. That means if you remove your hand from the character miniature, you move somewhere with your character miniature, you move your hand off, you cannot change your mind. You cannot put it back somewhere else because you thought, oh, hang on, that's not going to be such a good idea. I'm going to get an attack of opportunity or an opportunity attack on me. That would be a bad idea. No, it's too late. You cannot change your mind, not even in the slightest. Oh, sounds perfectly acceptable to me. It seems strange, but I have actually played with Dungeon Masters who operate this way. The Dungeon Master will assign you homework, particularly to players who have, well, in their frame of way, no understanding or need to revise specific rules of the game. If you don't have your homework ready, there is going to be homework. And if you don't do your study, look, I spent 4 hours, maybe 8 hours if you count everything else, preparing this adventure. At the very least, you can spend 6 hours studying the player's handbook so you know how to use your spells and run the game and actually play the game. Oh my gosh, it's not too much to expect, really. At the beginning of each session, there will be a short 10-page quiz given to the players to make sure they remember what happened last session, and of course 2 years from this date because you should have remembered what was taking place 2 years from now. My campaign, they run for years, and if you can't remember a small little bit of information that took place 2 years ago, I don't know what you're doing. You should be keeping notes. Where's your notebook? Seriously, keep a notebook. If you don't have a notebook, I will provide you with one. Of course, I will be charging you a fee for anything that you might do with that notebook. But anyway, that's beside the point. Survey sheets are passed out at the end of every single session, collecting data on the player's feedback. And this is really important. This will ensure that I know whether I should make sure your character dies horribly or your character is tortured, whether you have to deal with a trap that is a save and suck. In other words, if you don't save, your character dies. Or I will ensure that no magic items come your way ever. You won't see a single thing. So those survey sheets there are there to ensure that you stay in line. All perfectly acceptable and sensible things to do in any kind of game, and I don't know why anybody would be concerned. No, I don't know. It seems reasonable to me. I don't see why there should be a problem. You are given a social contract. This is a group contract where everybody is required to sign it. And not only do you sign it in your own blood. Sounds delicious. For those of you who are confused by the Megalomaniac Dungeon Master, they are easily spotted because they have that kind of laugh, that evil Dungeon Master scary laugh that really sort of sends a tingle up your spine. That is not the real laugh. The real laugh is the real nasty darkness. They obviously have the force, the dark force in them, the dark force, that evil laugh. So pay attention to that. Very important to watch out for something like that. And not only that, if your character dies, which it will, for guaranteed, your character's going to die. That character sheet is getting torn up, shredded, turned into confetti, and probably the Dungeon Master is going to dance on it to make sure that it can never be put back together with sellotape or anything like that. It's going through the shredder. Don't think you're going to ever be able to get that thing back, ever. The Dungeon Master provides you with a 600-page hard-covered house rule manual, and you are expected to read this within about a week. Look, 600 pages, you probably read at least 400 pages of The Lord of the Rings when you were a kid. You can manage 600 pages of some sort of manual that they have constructed. Okay, and then one of my favorites is I'm not allowed to roll the dice ever, because the Dungeon Master rolls all of my dice to ensure that I do not metagame. Because if I'm metagaming, I'm doing something wrong. Well, I'm not going to dispute that, but there is no dice rolling for attack rolls, damage. All of that is done by the Dungeon Master. Sounds a little odd, but okay, I'll go with that. And don't forget, you must speak in character. You must speak in character during combat about any tactical decisions you make or instructions you give to the other characters played by other people at that table. And of course, if I see in any way technology like phones coming out or tablets or laptops, and you are communicating by text to each other various tactical information, well, let's get rid of the technology. No cell phones, no laptops, and certainly no tablets, no technology whatsoever in any stage will be sitting at my table. Don't even bother bringing it in. Dungeons and Dragons is seen as a competitive sport. It is a competitive sport. I don't know where people get this idea that it's cooperative, because it's certainly not. No. And by all means, I will be playing and joining in with you. As the Dungeon Master, I will play another character, and that character is going to be the best character. It will have the best magic items. Not only will it have the best magic items, I'm going to ensure that I get to level up at a higher level than all the rest of you. And of course, I'm quite smart, so I'll make sure that I've built it correctly. Don't you worry about that. One of my favorites is always the Dungeon Master who stalks you on social media. By email, phone, text message. Oh, and look, only between 3 to 6 emails a day, and if you do not respond, there's going to be follow-up phone calls and texts saying, why have you not responded to my email regarding the game? Ha 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 ha. It's not too much to expect. You can do this at work, surely, that you have time. Okay, so here's all the different aspects to well, not all of them, but some of the concepts behind the Megalomaniac DM or Dungeon Master. So how do we deal with something like this? Well, you probably can't deal with something like this, but if you're late to your game session, you're out. You're gone. You're never coming back. It doesn't matter if you were 30 seconds late or 30 minutes late. No, I'm not interested whether you had a flat tire or you had a family emergency. You should have made sure you showed up late. And if you had to walk, you should have run. That's what running's for. Okay. I've talked a little bit about the crazy things that have happened at my table and probably at a few other people's tables. And for those of you who haven't figured it out, this is all a bit of a jest. So if you've been sitting here through this and you've suddenly thought, well, what the heck is going on? Well, I'm just mucking around. I'm tired and I've wanted to do this topic for a little while. So how do we rectify the Megalomaniac Dungeon Master? Well, I don't know. It seems a little bit much to ask. Well, I would start off with, let's start with communication. By all means, the best way to communicate with a Megalomaniac Dungeon Master is by electronic means. That is the internet, text message. Phone calls can be dangerous, but even Messenger, Facebook, all of those, fantastic method. Never in person. Never show up in person and talk to them, even with other people around. That would be like the most ridiculous thing to do, is to actually communicate with that person how you feel about their dungeon mastering. No, don't ever do that. And don't forget, when you need to seek advice about something like a situation like this, go and seek advice from complete strangers on the internet, on YouTube like myself, anybody on Twitch, anybody who's willing to give you advice on something. And of course, you won't know very much about these individuals who are giving you this advice. It would be silly to go and see family and friends and ask them advice after you've given them some pretty extensive detail about the situation and whether you decide what you're going to do from here. But, go ask a stranger. Best thing you can possibly do. If that doesn't work, it's time to catch a bus. Get yourself a bus. Leave the country completely. Never come back. Make sure that you have removed any signs of mail or indication, any correspondence that indicate where you have moved to. Make sure if the bus doesn't work, take a plane. Any kind of travel will work. Certainly, it wouldn't be sensible just to leave the game group. Just leave the country. And by far my favorite and probably the best option, if none of this works, is to give up on playing Dungeons and Dragons ever again because of this one experience that you've had. Never play again because you've had one experience that you felt was just too much to bear. There it is. Hasn't this been incredibly useful to you? I would say, yes, it has. It has been. Or my last option to you, for those of you who are concerned that I have not provided you with enough options, is you could always be a dungeon master, be a Megalomaniac dungeon master, just like yourself. You don't have to do it the way you would prefer it. You could do it the way you've been shown by somebody else. So, I am finished for my rant or whatever you want to call it. So, If you found this video completely confusing and off topic and utterly useless to you, please give it a thumbs up. If you actually understood anything that I said today, give it a thumbs down. If you want to watch more crappy, horrible video streams like this, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the bell button to be notified when I go live and do more silly videos like this, or when I publish a video related to these sorts of topics. Certainly anything related to clickbaity titles and images and just general nonsense. If you want to support my channel, well, you have by sitting through this, and well done, and I do commend you. I don't do Patreon because I'm still learning to be, I'm getting the gist of it. I'm patriotic. No, is it patriotic? Something. Yes. No, but I don't do that. But I do have the affiliate links down in the description where you can buy stuff online. I get a small commission as I try to hawk stuff off to you for a variety of reasons, most of which are to make sure that I still can pay my mortgage and a variety of other reasons which we won't go into. And now, if you have anything you want to share with me, so if you want to share the horrible stories you've had with Dungeon Masters which you just could not stand, that's what the chat box is for right now. Otherwise, if you're not part of the live stream, feel free to lay in a comment there. If you have any questions for me regarding how to deal with a megalomaniac dungeon master, I would like to remind you I am a stranger, and any information or advice that I give you is probably not very useful to you, and certainly I won't have all the facts, and you're probably better off to go and talk to your family and friends. And that is all I have to say for today. And till next time, keep letting your Dungeon Master roll those 20s.